Hello and welcome to another episode of Seriously in Business. This is a bonus episode. I had an interview I wanted to share with you and I just couldn't hold it in any longer, so I wanted to share this with you now. In case you don't know, my business is coaching business owners how they can create their own incredible brand and graphics, and I have a program called the Co+Creation Club, and it is currently having its final doors open for the year for 2023. And I wanted to give you some insights into what it's actually like as a business owner taking part in a program like this and the transformation it makes for the business owner and the impact that it has in their business. And I wanted to introduce you to a very special past client of mine called Amy. Amy is an author and a business owner, and she is not only an author and a business owner, she's also a mum, she's also a full-time worker at her normal job. And there's a lot going on in Amy's life. And I wanted to share with you, one, just how awesome she is, and she shares with us how she kind of manages and balances everything in her life, including how she helps her children to cook for her, the dream. And then also what her experience was like inside the Co+Creation Club and what that meant for her business. Amy and I actually did 2 brand designs for her inside the time she had in the club. And it was a really, really empowering process for her. It was a really incredible process for her. And she actually said, this was just such an honor for me, in terms that she said she has a very small budget for her business for the entire year, and she spent that whole budget on joining the club. How wild is that? And she said it was worth it. She said it was worth that investment. And so I want you to hear Amy's story. I want you to be inspired by her and how that process looked for her. And if joining the club is something you would like to do, I would love to have you. So the club is pretty much like a 10-week group coaching experience where we can work together on your branding, on your graphics, making sure that your business is elevated to that next level in professionalism, authenticity, that it's growing, and that it's really looking the part so that you feel proud of your business, so that people coming to your business are more likely to work with you, pay you for your services because you look the part and you're communicating your value. And that's what design does. It's the power of design. And so in this experience, we have a really small group and we work together to work on your branding and graphics. I teach you, we work together, we do videos, we do like live calls, you have a whole course program you also get access to, but that's not even the point of the club. Like, that's just sitting there as a bit of a bonus resource for you. And it is a really incredible experience. And I want you to hear what Amy thought of it and how it impacted her business. And I want you to be inspired by that. And I hope that you really feel inspired by it. And if you are interested, please head to DIYdesignmybiz.com/club. The links will be in all the places you find the links. And just have a look at that page. Have a look at what it involves. Have a look at the pricing. Have a look at the payment plans, and have a look at the testimonials there. Have a look at the before and afters of the incredible students and clubbers that have gone before you, and be inspired that this is actually possible for you in your business too. So I hope you consider joining, and I hope that you appreciate and love this interview with Amy as much as I did. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here too, because firstly, because you're just an epic person, and secondly, because I'm interested to get a bit of a glimpse into your life as juggling work and family and businessing, as well as hear a bit about what your real thoughts were on the Co+Creation Club. So I'm really excited for our chat today. So first things first, could you just give us a little rundown of who you are in terms of like the business side of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Amy Lawrence. I am an author. I write fantasy and science fiction for all different ages. And as part of that, very early on in my author journey, I decided that I did not want to work with a traditional publisher for a wide variety of reasons. And so I took the step of establishing my own small publishing company. So I now run a small press that publishes my own work. And I now have 4 other authors. I've just signed a new author on in the last 2 weeks, which is super exciting. I publish my own work. I publish most of the work of these other 4 authors as well. And I am the only operator in that press. So everything that is done by Inkprint Press is done by me.
I know this is what you do, but my brain does not fathom the actual what goes into printing and making a book. Like, I'm like, surely that's not a real thing. Surely only robots do that in different places that aren't in Amy's place. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so that was a really great introduction. Could you give us a bit of a glimpse into an everyday life of what it looks like for you in terms of, because I know that you also have a normal job. I know that you also are a mum. And so what does an everyday life look like for you on maybe a day that's slightly more your business orientated?
Absolutely. So I'm in the position where nearly 12 months ago now, I had a fairly major career change. And so honestly, the last, 9 to 12 months have been really a process of trying to figure out what my regular schedule is going to look like. Because previously I was a school teacher. And so I had a very, very clear rhythm to my days and to my weeks. And I lived by a schedule where a bell rang every 50 minutes to tell me where I needed to be and what I needed to do. And as a part of that, a lot of my business work happened significantly after hours, and a lot of weekend work and a lot of late night work. And that combined with the sheer and intense amount of after hours work that I was getting as a high school English teacher anyway, contributed to some really significant burnout, which is why I ended up changing careers. The career that I'm in now, thankfully, has zero homework and very, very infrequent out of hours work, which I am really, really valuing. And what I have been able to negotiate is that I actually work long week, short week. And so in my short week, I finish at 3 or 3:30, depending on the day. So I can go and pick the kids up from school, and then my time is my own for the afternoon. And so I try to do one of those days where I spent where it's a kid day and I'm finishing early specifically so that I can do fun things with the kids and we can play board games, or we can, do something around the house together, or we can go outside together or something like that. And then the other days, that is my business time, basically. And I have also just recently been able to negotiate a trial for 3 months that I'm very excited about, where I'm doing compressed hours. So my long week is going to be extra long, but it means that I actually get the whole Thursday off in my short week. And so that's this time as well. So I guess for those short days, what my sort of typical pattern might look like is I try to schedule a catch up. So the primary other person that I write and publish with, her name is Liana Brooks. And I call her my business partner, even though the press is mine and I do all the work of running the press. I've found that it's just been really useful over the years to have someone who really knows that headspace and who's also doing work as an author as well, and is really on the ground with me, so that I can just bounce ideas off someone else and just be like, look, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and this is the direction I'm thinking of taking. Can you please tell me if this sounds crazy or not? Or honestly, it's me, so it probably does usually sound crazy. But if it does sound crazy, is it at least plausible, And so now with this short week, long week pattern, I am fortunate enough that we have a fortnightly catch up. And so the first thing that I'll do on that day when I get home from picking the kids up from school is at 4:00, I'll have an hour-long meeting with her, which is fantastic. And I use that we check in with each other about where we're up to on what we're writing as authors as well. And then we also do the business check-in of okay, well, where are we at with distributors? Where are we at in the publishing process with all of the different titles we have in the works right now? What is our priority going to be in the next in the next month in terms of refreshing old titles or fixing errors? And what are we focusing on in our social media channels, and what are we doing there? What's our focus for the next few weeks? So we do that. I will then I get basically a 2-hour block from 4 till 6 o'clock. And it's mostly admin and publishing work and all those sorts of things. So on a daily basis, it could look like creating graphics and getting socials and things like that done. It could look like anything in the publishing workflow to actually bring the title to print. So it could be editing, it could be formatting, it could be cover design, it could be actually going on to places like Amazon and Apple and all those places and physically loading the title up for sale. It could be any of those sorts of tasks. And then my actual writing tends to happen. I do it either at lunchtime on my long days at work, because I found that when I'm working a long day, I need a longer lunch break to just reset. So I have that built into my hours, and that means that I go away for 45 minutes to an hour and I actually use that time to write on those days. And then in my short week, I tend to write before bed if I'm not too exhausted, because I find it actually does help me sleep better and it helps me switch off for the night. So it's almost like journaling, because it's you're getting out of your own headspace and you're fully absorbed in something else, but it's not switching on business brain. Whereas if I try and do business before bed, I'll just spend the whole night dreaming about it and not sleep properly.
I can totally understand that. Oh, cool. So that's really interesting. I love how you're kind of just finding little pockets during the day, like your lunch break or before bed, and doing the things that work for those times. So not doing other things in those breaks, but doing the stuff that like actually works. But gee whiz, that sounds like so many different things you need to do as a publishing kind of person. So kudos to you for all of those random things. I'm glad
taken a good 5 years to really wrap my head around exactly what our publishing workflow looks like. So
that's pretty incredible. Anyway, so that's really cool. And so you said that you at 4 o'clock from 4 till 6 on the short days you're working. Who's making dinner?
So my kids are now 8 and 11.
Yeah.
The burnout last year as I finished up teaching was so significant that I was having to nap during my free periods every day in my car just to actually physically get through the day. And it was so intense that my then 10-year-old son was actually having to help out making dinner at least once a fortnight. He was in charge of dinner. Yeah. It turns out that he loves cooking. He actually really enjoys the independence of being able to cook for himself in the kitchen. And so I'm very lucky that sometimes, probably once a fortnight still, he will actually be involved in that process of cooking dinner. And so that's just simple things like he can make hot dogs for the family, or he can do halloumi burgers is a favorite that he loves doing, or something relatively simple like that. And he loves the fact that he can boil and fry up eggs and things like this for snacks for himself and his sister. So that's really helpful. The other thing that helps is that I feel like it's a bad habit, but honestly, it's been happening for so long now that it's just what my kids know. We don't eat dinner until at least 7 o'clock at night.
Right, okay.
And so the kids get home from school at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and they will have a snack when they get home from school, and they'll have a muesli bar and a yogurt or something like that. And that will keep them going until dinner time. And so finishing at 6 o'clock actually works okay for that, because then it gives me an hour to cook dinner and hang out with the family and that sort of thing. Yeah. And also while I'm working, it's not the kind of closed door working where no one's allowed to come and bother me. It's very interactive with the kids still. And I'll be calling out to them sort of every 15 minutes being like, have you worked on your chores yet? I can hear the TV's on. Have you actually finished your chore? Okay, come and read Mummy the list of chores and prove that you've actually done it. Oh, look, we have not actually finished our chores. Maybe the TV needs to go back off again now. Yeah. So it's a fairly interactive. It's definitely not a flow state, 2 hours of working. Yeah.
But it's what you can get, and so that's what you're doing.
I think that's largely why it's the publishing stuff that happens then, because it doesn't matter if I'm
interrupted
in the middle of doing something, because it's not something that I'm gonna lose my train of thought or anything.
Yeah, that's cool. So I love then how you've chosen the different tasks to do at different points in your life, because that's when it suits well. I also loved how you mentioned you got your business partner who's not really a business partner, but kind of is a business partner. But it's just I think we all need that person. For me, that's kind of what my coach is. She will have regular catch ups, and I'll ask her questions like, "Is this a stupid idea?" And she's like, "Yes, that's a stupid idea," or "No, go for that." Or try like this. I'm like, sweet. And so if you don't have a coach, doing what Amy's done here is such a great idea of or if you if you do have a coach, you don't have to not have a business friend that's really invested in what your business does. And if they're not in the exact same field as you and you can't help them, and that's it's not a mutually beneficial conversation, then obviously talking half an hour about their business and then talking half an hour about your business will be totally fine. And I think it must be such a great way to kind of start off that period of work, because you're going in so intentionally to those next 2 hours, rather than thinking, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to work on for this next little bit. I'm just going to tick away, and then I might check my social media, and then next minute it's been an hour and a half and you've got half an hour left. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So I used to do annual business plans, because that's a thing that you're supposed to do, right? And set your goals for the next 12 months.
Yeah.
And guess how many times I was actually successful at, achieving those business plans? That would be a great big 0.
Yeah.
And so the ability to, I've really found that this ability to move to having fortnightly catch-ups now and just doing small soundbite kind of planning instead has been so much more effective for me. And instead of having that big 1-year plan, I sort of check in with myself every quarter and go, okay, well, am I achieving the long-term goals as well as the short-term goals? And that regular 2-weekly check-in just gives me so much more focus, and I'm finding I am so much more able to make progress in a really focused and purposeful way than I was before. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love I also plan quarterly every 90 days. It's a new kind of plan, and that kind of, it's long enough that it's like I can see some momentum growing, but it's also short enough that I can't just be like, oh, I'll do that next year. It's like, go on next month or whatever. It's like, no, I've actually got to start implementing this. If I want to achieve this, then I'm going to have to do this now. So
Exactly.
it's such a great little increment of time. So for anyone listening, if you're not doing planning it, try doing it 90 days and then try having some sort of catch up with someone every 2 weeks or so to keep your momentum going on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Love it, love it. All right. So now I would love to ask you some questions around the Co-Creation Club. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Co-Creation Club is pretty much, I've explained it so many times in this podcast, so hopefully you do know. But if you don't and you're listening to this for the first time, the Co-Creation Club is pretty much an experience where you get to work closely with me as kind of like the design coach / designer for your business. I'm not like doing all the designs for you, but I'm so invested in them in terms of like Amy will probably give some great examples of this, how we kind of are like going back and forward, editing your designs together. I'm giving you feedback and giving you video tutorials, and kind of it's this experience where if you want to actually take the ownership of creating your own graphics, and you don't want to hand that totally over to someone else, you get the input from a designer, but also the autonomy and the skills to be able to create it for yourself. And it's really, really cool. And it only runs live twice a year. And we're about to run it again in July. And the doors are opening very, very soon from listening to this. Hold on. If you're listening to this, the doors are open. Congratulations. So head to www.diydesignerbiz.com/club and you can see all the details there. But Amy, I would love to know what your experience was like in the club. And firstly, why did you join?
Because your webinar was so value packed that I came away being like, yes, I need to work with this person.
Oh, that's cool.
That is literally why. So I had never met Jacqui before I joined the club. I did not know anything about Jacqui. I didn't know anything about what she did or the fact that she was a fellow Australian or anything. And Jacqui, one of your ads popped up in my Instagram feed, and it was the one about, it was the quiz for what is your brand design aesthetic.
Yeah.
The timing of that could not have been more perfect because my business partner and I, we've been talking for the last 6-ish months, maybe 9 months now, about the fact that we knew that we really needed to do a rebrand. You know, I feel like this year has really been a transitional year for me. So we established the press officially back in 2017 was our first release. And I feel like that first 5 years for me, working around a really intense full-time day job, was all about learning the processes and actually just physically learning how to put books up for sale and make that work. And I felt like last year with the change in my day job career as well and opening up more time to spend in my business, I was really moving into a second period where now it was about, okay, well, I know how to do this. Now I need to actually start connecting with an audience and getting it out to people. And so we've been having a lot of discussions around the branding of the press and the feel of the press and what it is that we stand for and our values and all those sorts of things, and had been having those conversations around, well, how do we actually translate this into a visual brand as well? What do we look like? Because up until then, our graphics had been kind of scattershot, you know, like on an individual basis, each of them looked fine, but on an overall basis, there was no real cohesion between them.
Yeah.
And I felt the same for my own personal brand as well. For Amy Lawrence, I had a rough color scheme that I was trying to stick to, and I had done a little bit of work throughout the last half of last year, trying to refine my website and sort of bring that into a little bit more of an alignment as well. But yeah, I knew there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And so that free quiz came across my dash. I went in, I did the free quiz, both for Inkprint Press and for Amy Lawrence. And I was legitimately actually blown away by how much free information you offered in those, how helpful they were. And I couldn't get over the fact that not only do, you know, you do free quizzes like that and you expect like a 1-paragraph result, right? I did not expect a multi-page PDF, let alone also a link to Pinterest inspiration boards with all these ideas of options that would match this particular aesthetic. So that was incredible. And thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The first time that I got the scrapbooking style for Inkprint Press and I looked at it and went, oh my gosh, that actually would work. Like I actually see for the first time how I could pull, because obviously the complexity with trying to brand a press is that you're dealing with all of the authors, not that you've got all the authors' own branding underneath that. And then each of the authors have series, and each of the series has its own branding under that as well.
So many different things to incorporate. I remember discussing this in the club.
That's it. So it's like you've got to come up with some sort of umbrella container that's going to match with all of these different looks underneath it. And so that was amazing. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me then to sign up for your 1-hour webinar that you did. And that was a fantastic price point that I really felt was, like I said, just an absolute no-brainer, because it was a great price point, and I trusted from that free quiz that I was just going to come away with a lot of value, and I absolutely did. I was just blown away. I took pages and pages of notes. I had light bulbs going off the whole time of like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's how I can do that for this, and that's how I can do that for this. So why did I then take the step and go from there? If I felt like that was so much value, why did I then feel the need to join up for the whole experience?
Yeah.
A not insignificant factor in that was the fact that, as you are well aware, Jacqui, I am very, very subject to shiny syndrome. And I'm sure many of your listeners can identify, right? Like, I know what I like and I know what works in one aesthetic, but in the process of researching for that aesthetic, I slowly start drifting until all of a sudden I'm off in a different aesthetic. And now I have like 5 different aesthetics that I know would all work, but I don't know how to pick which one it is that I want. I knew that I couldn't afford to hire a graphic designer to do the whole thing from the ground up for me. I just did not have that anywhere in my budget at all. I knew that I had at least enough basic graphic design skills that what I needed was guidance rather than 101 instruction, because I had been doing the graphics for the press. I do a lot of our covers. I do some arty things in the rest of my life as well. And so I felt like the Co-Creation Club was actually the perfect marriage of exactly what I needed in terms of a really reasonable price point, getting some really professional expert advice and guidance to help me cut through all of that noise and make the decisions that I needed to make, so that the skills that I did have could actually be useful, rather than just running around like a, headless chook trying to make that first decision of, but what do I even want this to look like? Because there are so many pretty things in the world and I don't know how to pick the prettiest one. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for stepping through that. So we're recording this before it comes out. I'm actually finishing off the content for the next workshop that I'm doing before I open up the club. And so that's been some good encouragement around the content, because you always feel like, oh, well, that wasn't good enough, I should change it and do all these things. But maybe it was pretty good. So that's encouraging for me. I think a lot of people resonate with that idea of the shiny syndrome of like, oh, that's a pretty graphic. Oh, that's a pretty graphic. And as a designer, I'm very lucky in terms of I get to live out my creativity in lots of people's different brands. And that's like a dream for me. But for everyday people, like, we really, like, what's going to be the best thing for your business is not getting caught up with all these different beautiful things, but focusing on one beautiful thing and doing that really well and doing that repetitively. And for you, as you say, you've got a pretty good eye, but you're getting caught up with like, oh, but when did I try this thing? And then actually, well, if I just put this idea in here too, and I'm like, those two ideas do not go together. And so it was kind of really fun working with you to be like, all right, why do we want this idea? Like, what is that actually communicating? Is your audience going to be gravitating towards that? And this is what this concept looks like in reality across all of your different graphics. Are you happy with that? Good. Let's stick with that. No more looking around. Like, we're just going to go full hog on this and live with it and push into it and find the beauty in that it's going to be enough for you to not have to just stress about, oh, but what if I try this thing? And it's like, no, we've already made that decision, and we made that decision with good authority and with good reasoning, and we're going to stick with it. And it's just like the amount of graphics you're now punching out because you've made that decision, you're sticking with it. I think it's quite impressive, to be honest. And so what was it like for you? Actually, no, first, what did you create? Because you, like, before you joined the club, you were messaging me. So if anyone wants to message me, you're welcome to. You were messaging me around, Jacqui, I've got 2 brands, and they're going to be totally different kind of brands. Can I do 2 brands inside the club? And I was like, I mean, it's a stretch, but for someone, if you're committed to doing it, of course you can. Like, the club is now 10 weeks rather than 6 weeks, which it was with you. And so there's even more of this time to be like, actually, yeah, I can smash this out. And you did. And I thought that was very, very impressive. So what exactly did you create inside the Co-Creation Club?
Everything. No, not quite everything. So I chose to focus on my Amy Lawrence brand first, because I felt like I was the closest to having something workable with that. Yeah. And I knew that doing that and having a quick win would be beneficial. Yeah. And if nothing else, I knew that if I only walked away having done one brand, having the Amy Lawrence brand down would probably that was what I was going to be happier with doing. Yeah. So I came in knowing a rough color scheme and the fact that I wanted leaves and gold glitter And that was the only things that were like the absolute set things. And everything else, as Jacqui was saying, was like whirling around of like, but this, but that, but that. And so thank you very much for reining me in, which is exactly what I needed, and directing that. And from there, I was able to create, gosh, what did we do? We did a full suite of social media templates. So reel covers, Instagram posts, story background templates. Jacqui taught me some amazing tips and tricks to make stories that I share from other accounts fit my own branding as well, which I really value. We did all of that. We did a complete redesign of my newsletter. I have spent the last 5 years knowing that I need to do a newsletter and absolutely hating it. I think I sent one newsletter all year last year because it was just not a space that I enjoyed being in. Yeah. And so I was actively avoiding it. And now I look at my newsletter and I'm like, oh, it's been like 2 months since I sent a newsletter. I really need to send another newsletter. Oh, great. What graphics can I create? Oh, what heading am I going to use to go in that section? Oh, yeah, there's that section. So I'm actually just really excited to play with these graphics in this template that I now have set up now.
And people are like, design isn't that important. I'm like, look at the way that you were blocking your own success of like, if you imagine for the last 5 years, you were sending out an email every 2 months.
Yeah.
That would make a huge difference to the momentum and to the clients and your customers you had on there. Whereas now we've actually done that and you're doing it and you're doing the things and you're showing up on social media, sending your newsletters, and design is giving you the confidence and the love of it to be able to do it. I just think that's so cool.
And not to jump ahead with questions or anything, but I know that one thing that you ask people who have been in the club is, well, what is like the result that you got from being here? And I think that I actually can't overstate the importance to other small business owners as well of the ability of good design to make things easy for you and make it enjoyable. You know, we have so many different hats that we wear as entrepreneurs, and there are so many things that we have to do. And the one thing that I think I learned most from this experience that I was not expecting and that is so broadly applicable is that when there's an area of my business that I'm hating, that I'm avoiding, that I'm not enjoying engaging with, that's actually a sign for me to really reassess why that is and what I can do to make that easier and how I can actually change things to make myself enjoy that space, right? So we have ADHD in the family, and one of the tips and tricks that I've learned, so this is only a relatively new revelation in our family, and so it's been a bit of a journey the last couple of years to learn strategies and things to support that. And one of the things that I do is when I'm having trouble focusing on a task, I've learned that it's really important to check in, because often it means that I'm understimulated. And so I go through the 5 senses check of, okay, well, what can I add for taste? Often that's tea for me. What can I add for sound and put either an appropriate podcast or background music on? And I actually go through all the 5 senses. And sight is one that we kind of just take for granted, right? Because it's like, well, I'm doing business work on a screen, on a computer. What do you mean I have to add sight? But it's so much more engaging to work with graphics that are actually aesthetically beautiful.
Yeah.
And my task avoidance is just gone because I actually, you know, I'm getting stimulation. I'm getting dopamine from playing with these graphics now. And it's inherently rewarding because they are beautiful. And so that ability of design to transform a task that felt hard and heavy into a space that I actually now, not only am I not avoiding it, but I'm actually actively enjoying it. I am embarrassed to admit how many times a week I sit there and just scroll up and down my own Instagram feed because it is now just so beautiful that I actually just enjoy being in that space that I had been avoiding for so long, you know?
That's so cute. I love that. And I couldn't, like, I agree totally with how you just put that I think we forget that even for people that, it's like some people probably, this will be less of an issue for them in terms of they might not be as visually stimulated, but for people like you and people like me, having things that are beautiful are so much more motivating for me. And I think for most people it is. Like we put beautiful pictures on our phone wallpapers. We choose beautiful artwork for our house. Like humans love beautiful things. And so why not create that in your business that it can be more of an enjoyable, flowy, fun experience? I love how you put that.
We all love an aesthetic, you know? Yeah.
We're such visual people. Like I was doing a brainstorming map for a client yesterday, and I was like, I could really just put random text and boxes and this would be fine, but I just had to make it in her brand colors, and I had to make the boxes the right colors because it just was nicer. It was a better experience for all of us, all right, back on track.
Yes.
So your brand, Amy Lawrence, you did your branding and your social media templates and your email. Anything else?
I also completely overhauled my website. So this is another example of absolute perfect timing. Literally like the week before I found that free quiz on Instagram, I had switched my website around. So previously I had been a blog first website. And so the aesthetics of it, because it was all just blog posts and I had a bit of a header and it had my name and it had the right colors and that was enough. The traditional wisdom with independent publishing was that until you are releasing new product regularly, you should be a blog first website because that demonstrates your content and that's your content release and the regularity. I had reached the point where I'm like, okay, I now have enough releases. I have enough books out. I know what my schedule is going to be moving forward. I need to move to being a product first website rather than a blog first website. I had made the switch. I had changed it over. I had done nothing else. And then I saw your quiz and was like, okay, putting the brakes on. I need to just pause on that website redesign because I have a feeling that everything I do with Jacqui is going to change that. And it did, not only in terms of the visual aesthetic of it, but also even the structure of the website and the way that I was approaching that. Before, my website was competent, like there was no big turnoffs there, but it was just competent. I have had 3 random people compliment me in my life on my website, literally in the last week. One is a colleague and one is a person that I had asked a year ago to give me a website review. They're a professional in the independent publishing industry and were offering some website and platform reviews. And it just so happened that they got around to doing mine this week. And I'm like, thank goodness, because if they had done it earlier, it would have been such a waste of time. But to hear this person who is also a professional designer go through the website and be like, these graphics are so good, I'm jealous, is just mind-blowing.
Amy did that, guys. She did it all. That's so good.
Absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, I did, but it was, with your guidance and with your tutelage and with your suggestion of layout and placement and all these sorts of things. So, yeah, complete overhaul of the website, the newsletter, the social media feeds, and also a catalog. So that's right. I can, print out a physical catalog and take to markets and stalls and things like that and have, in a little binder, actually have a product catalog of all of my books there as well. So, yeah, and that was, apart from the website, which I took away and did around other things, that was literally in the first 3 weeks of the program.
That's right.
That is just how amazing it is and empowering it was, and how hands-on, Jacqui, you are during the week with being available in that Facebook thread. And I know you said early on in the experience that it really is a case of you get out what you put in. And I think that even more so for an experience like this than anything else, because it's such a cliched phrase, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, it really is true, because
it's 100% the case.
That's it. That's like the more I was able to bring to the table and say, Jacqui, here are the graphics I've done, the more you were able to give me that feedback. And yeah, I was consistently blown away by how generous you were in your feedback and how you just go above and beyond to give those, even just the littlest, tiniest tweaks to just elevate something, even from 90% to 100%,
Yeah.
And I just felt so supported and empowered that it just felt really easy to create that volume of stuff. To be fair, I also did look at it and go, okay, if I'm paying this much money for something like this, I really do want to get the value out of it. And so I cleared my schedule.
Yeah.
So the way that the Co-Creation Club ran when I went through it earlier in 2023 was that we had the 3 weeks on, and then we had 3 weeks off to create and process and ideate, and then another 3 weeks on. And the 3 weeks at the beginning and the 3 weeks at the end, I completely cleared my schedule as much as I could so that I would be able to just focus on this and put into it as I could. And I do not regret that at all.
Yeah. You totally showed up and created some incredible stuff. And and you're totally right. Like the more you're able to put in, the more you get out. And it's not to say that you can't do it if you can't totally clear your schedule, or like, obviously for you, you're still working full time. You're still being a mum full time. It was just the business stuff. You were kind of more focusing on the graphics for this season. But now that's all done. Like you've just had that that process, while it was big, while it was happening, is totally finished now. And you've got all of these graphics that are just setting you up for hopefully the next 5-10 years of both of your businesses. And you were able to do that at such a cheaper rate than if you hired someone like me to do it for you, plus get those skills, like going, like, even like, say, for example, to hire my agency to do a full brand and a couple of graphics would be $2,500. And then that's just those things. It's not the actual skills to take that out into the world and create. Oh, actually, I didn't get the designer to work on this catalog. Oh, wait, how the heck do I do that? And you try to create something that looks really rubbish because you don't have those skills. Whereas now you have the skills to literally not just edit the templates you made for yourself, but you have the skills to create anything you possibly need into the future and know that it's going to be amazing because you've got that great brand background that you made, but you've also got just the thinking, the design thinking around the principles and the why does this work or why is this not working, and kind of fleshing that out. I think you did that so well.
Like, I also just can't overestimate how much those little things around design thinking make a difference. You know, like I'm certainly not a professional designer, but I do have design in my background. I do some, like I said, I do some of our covers. I've been doing our graphics. I don't have a terrible eye. No. And my husband looked at the package and was like, well, why are you paying someone to do this? You know how to do this. You are a competent design person. You can do this. We got to the end of the first 3 weeks when I'd done the complete rebrand of Amy Lawrence, and he looked at it and went, okay, maybe I need to do that for my business. And he does not say things like that lightly. So I feel like it would be really easy for people to look at this and dismiss the program because they feel like their skills are quote unquote good enough, you know? And I am so glad that I didn't use that excuse. I'm really, really glad that I didn't. Yeah. This is just about my skills in a whole other way that I wouldn't have imagined possible, you know?
That's really cool to hear. All right. So that was the first bit you worked on. And then you also worked on your whole other ink press brand.
Yes.
So what did you get done for that?
Ink print press as well. Didn't get quite as much done with this one because I was a bit busier in that second 3-week block. Yeah. But nonetheless, still got the full suite of reel covers and Instagram posts done for socials. Got
along with the full rebrand.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. I mean, this was starting from scratch. We had nothing except a logo that we wanted to keep, and in the end, we ended up ditching the logo as well and just completely starting literally from a blank slate from the ground up and going, okay, what can we do with this? So developed the color palette, developed the design elements, developed the fonts, developed a revised version of the new logo to match the fonts, then developed all the socials from that as well. From there, did the catalog rebrand because that was more of the priority for Inkprint Press so that we've got those pages available, and then started edging into website design and graphics for the website there.
Yeah.
Which I still have work that I'm intending to do on that. But again, I have that really solid base to build from.
I have no doubt about what you'll create for that.
So now once I get the Amy Lawrence website fully finalized, then Inkprint Press website is the next major overhaul there. So that's really, really cool. And I think, it's just so cool. Like I just like as the coach, like I'm not just in and out of these people's lives. Like I'm still following Amy. We're still chatting to like, that looks amazing and stuff because like these peeps are my friends, whether they like it or not. And super happy to be adopted.
It's really great. And so it's just really nice personally for me just seeing new posts that Amy's doing, like, I can see that she edited that template to then do this and this. And then now that looks really cool. And like just watching your students kind of evolve and create is just such a really cool moment for me. And also not forgetting that we get that, like, for anyone who doesn't know, you get a year's worth of support after the club finishes. So it's not as if you're like, oh, cool, I had this really great 10 weeks with Jacqui and then it's all over now. You still get one more year of monthly calls and Facebook group support at a slightly lower capacity. And it just means that if something comes up, you're like, oh, but how do I use it in this scenario? Or I made this thing, but something's not quite right. You don't just have to keep working it out on your own. Like you can still get my support for that. But the support you get from me is just so deep because I already have this deep foundation of knowing your business and your brand and you, to the point where I can be like, oh, remember we talked about this in the club. Like, don't forget you need to do this and this and this. And then they're like, their light bulb goes up in their head and they're like, oh, of course, I forgot about that. Thank you, Jacqui, for reminding me. And like, they go and create something incredible. And so it's kind of like, it's nice to be able to just continue that journey on with people.
Yeah. And again, the level of that support is just so empowering, you know, like I'm sitting here going, okay, once I'm finished with the Amy Lawrence site, I then need to dive into the Inkprint Press site. That feels a little bit intimidating. Oh, it's okay, because I still have Jacqui, you know, I can still flick her messages. I can still send her graphics and be like, Jacqui, help, you know. It's, yeah, I honestly, I am a word person. That is my job. And I actually don't have words enough to express how grateful I am for this experience and how much I just genuinely feel like it has set my business up so much for success in the future, not only in terms of just making it a place that is enjoyable for me and super professional for other people who are approaching it, but also just by making so many tasks that used to be so hard so much easier. So much of that comes down to Jacqui's support and empowerment and the way that she just nurtures that self-belief and those skills in all of her students so that, yeah, we all come away being like, yeah, we can do this. Jacqui's right. We got this, you know?
I love that. That was so great. And okay, so we've pretty much, for anyone who's wondering, I have like a list of questions I like to ask people, but me and Amy pretty much just like dodged around all of them while we asked the first question. So Amy, I'm just going to ask you, do you have anything else you wanted to add that we haven't already discussed? Because I feel like we've done a pretty good job.
I feel like we've covered most things.
Great.
I mean, I'm happy to just keep raving about the program some more because that's how I feel about it.
I'll ask you one more question. If someone's listening to this right now and they're like, maybe I'll join the club, this sounds kind of cool, what encouragement would you give them, or what warning, or what, like, think about this, and if this all right, then like what would you share with them to help them to make a decision around whether the club is the place for them to go to?
I would say that a lot of the time when we see programs like this, I don't know about other people, but the two things on my mind are the price point and whether or not the course will be pitched at me where I am, whether it's going to be too simple, too complex, too easy, too hard, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that Jacqui is very skilled at pitching the course to exactly where you need it to be. I honestly cannot think of a single person who would not benefit from this course, whether they are a complete beginner or whether they are literally friends that I have who work as graphic designers, not because necessarily I'm making a judgment quality about, well, Jacqui is a better graphic designer than my friend, but just because I see the value in that dialogue that Jacqui's able to have, even with someone who is a professional graphic designer. And that, I feel like that would be more akin to me with my business partner talking, you know, but the way that I saw you, Jacqui, adapt your feedback and your teaching to every person in our group call, and you were able to effectively triage exactly the next step that each person needed without it feeling really overwhelming and without talking down to people who needed a lot of support, but also without holding back the people who were able to run at a faster pace. I was a teacher for 13 years and I was impressed.
That's incredible to hear, because obviously I am not a teacher, but I do try really hard to do that. So that's really heartwarming to hear that came across. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think because of that, there's literally not a single person that would not benefit from this. It doesn't matter what skill level you're at. You will definitely get something. You will get enough value from this course that the price point will feel worth it. They run the press on a very, very tight budget. This is my entire budget for the year in order to attend this course, and I would not change that for the world.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. And it feels like such an honor that people would even spend their hard-earned money on me. Like, are you sure you want to do this? But like, I do know it's going to be so worth it. So please join, but like, no pressure. But to know that like over and over again, I've just heard people say this was the best course I've done, or the best program I've done, or it's been so worth the money, or I would pay triple for that. I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm so glad that happened. And I'm so glad I got to work with these people. So thank you for sharing that. You've got the gift of encouragement. That's really beautiful. So that's so great. So if anyone is interested in reading or getting books printed, how can we get in touch with your world?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest place to find me is either my website, which is www.amylauren.com. And Laurens is like the girl's name, Lauren, Lauren, just with an S on the end.
Perfect.
And I am by Amy Laurens, as in written by Amy Laurens, on all of social media. Instagram is the place where you are most easily able to get a response. And the press is Ink Print Press. And that's inkprintpress.com or inkprintpress over on Instagram as well. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions, not just about books and publishing, but if anyone has questions about Jacqui's programs that they don't want to ask Jacqui, I would be more than happy to field some questions from that as well.
You are far too kind. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today and sharing all your wisdom and your knowledge and an insight into your life as well. That's been so interesting. And I so appreciate your words and your vibe. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you for listening to that episode with Amy. I hope you loved our conversation. She's just the best. And I hope that you were inspired of what's possible for you and your business too. So again, just make sure that you have a look at the club if that's something of interest to you. The doors will be closing very soon and we get started on July the 17th together. And I would love to have you along. It's our final time to run it for 2023. So if you're wanting to make change in your business, then is now the time. Is now the time you can stop putting this off. Is now the time that you can start showing up consistently. It's now the time that you can learn to design graphics faster and actually enjoy the process and make sure that your graphics are working to grow your business and not drag it down. So head to DIY-designmybiz.com/club and you can learn all about it. Check out the testimonials, check out the payment plans and see if you can make it work for you and your business. And if you've got any questions at all, just hit me up. You can message you on Instagram, you can send me an email, you can do anything at all and I will have a personal dialogue with you working out if this is the right decision for you and your business. And just so you know, it works for any time zone, any place in the world. The live group calls, we make sure that when you join, you select your preferences and I make sure that there is a group call time that works for you and your time zone. So don't stress about that. I have a lot of questions around that. I want to make sure I cleared that up. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here and I'll see you next week for another episode. Bye.